From the New York City area, welcome to the Badass Counseling Show, where the master badass himself, Sven takes you deep and gives balm for the soul, baby.
Hello, hello. My name is Sven and you have found the Badass Counseling Show. We're having a lovely time tonight. We are doing a lightning round, taking listener questions from around the world. Whether you are tuning in from Belfast or Wernersville, Pennsylvania, perhaps you're in Okanagan, Canada, or up in Kennebunk, Maine. It's wonderful to have you tuning in. And we are here to just take and answer all your questions regarding life, love, marriage, career, motivation, all things that you are wrestling with in your life. I am joined in studio by KC in the booth and Rob sitting next to me. Rob, how are you?
Hello, I'm well. What if KC was from KC? Would that be confusing?
KC Mo. Or KCK. For those of you that don't know what KC Mo and KCK are, the city of Kansas City in the United States sits on the border between two states, Kansas and Missouri. The abbreviation of Missouri is MO. So when people say KC Mo, it means they're from Kansas City, Missouri. The eastern side, if they say I'm from KCK, it means they're from the Kansas side of Kansas City, and that's on the west. So if it were KC from KCK, wow. That would be a lot of fun to say that every night.
I always learn something from this show.
Oh, please. You already knew that. All right. So first question of the night. I'm here to answer all your questions, and we've got the first one queued up from here on Facebook. By the way, we are live right now on Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. And I've got a question from Jennifer here on Facebook. She asks, how can I name the beast inside if I can't figure out the root problems under it? Okay. What she's referring to in naming the beast is one of the things that... I talk about in my book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup, is naming the beast is half the problem. You'll hear me say that a lot, and I actually inherited that one from my mother, who did this work for decades. Naming the beast, articulating a problem. The way to think of it is, imagine you've got this series of symptoms. You're a guy, and you have these symptoms. My gums hurt, I got a rash on my ass, and my ankles are swollen. Or some random confluence of symptoms. Right? And if you're like most guys, you don't go to the doctor. Fuck it, I'll tough it out. Fuck it, I'm fine. Right? And then eventually it's going on for a month, and now you're kind of concerned because the ankles are hurting a bit, and the rash on your ass hasn't gone away, and your gums are swollen, whatever it is. Finally, you go into the doctor and you tell the doctor, hey, my gums are swollen, I have a rash on my ass, and my ankle joints are hurting me. And the doctor says, oh, it's such and such disease. She sends you out with a handful of pills and says, that'll be $500. Get the fuck out of my office. She names the disease. The doctor names the disease. By naming something, we have power over it. It was thought among primitive cultures that once you can name it, that we now have power over whatever the demon is inside of you. Naming confers great power. All right. And it's the same way with our own problems because what's implied by naming, it implies I understand something. I know something. I'm getting it. It's not just this intimidating confluence of symptoms. So you're saying, how can I name the beast if I can't figure out the root problems under it? You begin by articulating what the hell is the problem you're dealing with right now. You start with what problem is presenting itself right now, and then you drill down to where the origins are of that. You're saying, I can't figure out the root problems. And I'll be very, very honest with you. I could tell you, but it'd take about the next 10 minutes to explain it. The simplest answer is just do the book. Because my book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup, I literally walk you through this process of drilling down to what those core beliefs and problems are. All right? But if you are already reading the book, to the person that asked that question, you need to be doing the journaling problems, because that's going to help take you down into what's really going on. Next question is over here on TikTok. Shailene asked the question, I just saw a video where you say the parents in the adult child's head. How do I fix it? I put up a post. This one originally went up back in May of 21, and it just exploded, like 6 million views. I put it up again about a day or two ago, and it's already at a few million views. They're on TikTok and Facebook and up on YouTube and Instagram and so forth. And in it, I basically say that, if you've got a kid who's failure to launch, or maybe the kid is 22, 24, 32, whatever it is, that the real problem is that the parents' voices are in the kid's head. And the parents' voices have been there so strong perhaps controlling, criticizing, undermining, constantly questioning that kid. And so Shailene comes along and says, so I saw that video and you say, where you talk about that, how do I fix it, Sven? Okay. That's a great question, Shailene, because it goes back to the question I was just answering a minute ago with this person saying, how do I drill down to what the core issues are? And first thing you got to do is you can begin journaling. Get out a pad of paper and a pen and start writing about what's really going on inside of you right now, what you're really feeling, what the problem is. Do your best to articulate what the problem is, right? And then we start looking for origins. Well, why am I feeling this way? Where is this message coming from? And a lot of times we can't do that on our own without the right tools. And I know I'm sounding like a broken record here, but literally I wrote the book to take you through this step-by-step process of discerning what the exact problem is and how to get it out of you. And again, those of you that follow the show and those of you that have read the book know that it is a process, but it's not a hard process, or it's not a complex process. It's a somewhat simple process, but it's hard because it forces you to look at where your messages came from and the havoc that it's really wreaking on your life. But the book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup, will step you through that process. All right, next question. How do I deal with my family enmeshment and my narcissist older sibling? How do I deal with it? The mere fact that you're dealing with it says that it's painful and you're not enjoying it. And you're asking, how do you deal with it? Well, that implies that you wanting to deal with something says that you're wanting to stay in this situation, but figure out a way to sort of survive. That's what dealing with is. That's what coping is. I tell people all the time, if you're still coping, you're not healed. There are times when we have to cope. We have to cope to get through a long family weekend. It's just a pain in the ass, but I got to be there because my kids want to go, or whatever it is. There are times when coping is necessary, but coping as a long-term strategy is not a healing method. Healing and coping are two different things. And you're asking, how do I deal with? Basically, how do I cope with my family enmeshment and my narcissistic older sibling? If your goal is simply to deal with, well, then you flush out all your feelings going into situations where you're going to be interacting with your family. You get out all the feelings because clearly you likely have sadness and anger at your older sibling, let alone at your family as a whole, where your older sibling is probably favored and uses the family to get their own needs met, and you're probably feeling like your needs aren't getting met. How do you deal with it? You flush out all your feelings and you keep having interactions with your family. But that's how you deal. That doesn't really address how do you fix, all right? But you didn't ask how do I fix it. Well, the truth is, my answer is if you had asked how you fix it, I would say the odds of you being able to change your family's trajectory where you have a narcissist older sibling where it's all about them, and then clearly you must have parents that reinforce that allow that to be sort of the pecking order of the family. And so the notion that you're going to be able to change all of that is slim to none, because that pecking order, the family myth system supports this pecking order. The family myth system and who's important and how you're supposed to act supports the person at the top of the food chain. And very often it's a parent, but it's not always a parent. Or sometimes it's a parent in cahoots with a sibling. But it sounds like you're at the bottom of that fucking totem pole. You're eating shit. And so what you may discover, and the mere fact that you say, how do I deal with, implies that you still want to be in interactions with your family. How do I deal with it, Sven? I'm interacting. I want to keep interacting. I don't want to cut off my family. Well, that's exactly right. That's the price. You may find that you have to cut off your family. You may find that they have no interest. You state your needs and articulate what your needs are, but you may find that you get scoffed at or minimized. Your needs and wants and feelings get minimized. Therefore, you may discover that you have to walk away from your family. And I'm sure the mere thought of that is painful and intimidating. But if your own needs aren't being met and if you aren't being honored as a person, then those are the kinds of relationships where unfortunately we have to walk away in life, because why would you want to stay in relationships where I'm being minimized or negated or treated as inferior or unnecessary? And it's fucking painful as shit, but sometimes in life that's what we have to do. Rob, do you have something for me over there on YouTube?
I got a good one on a topic that you frequently like to talk about, forgiveness. This person's looking for affirmation from you, and I think you're going to provide it. Here's the story. Why was I told I had to forgive the person who molested me? I was a child when it happened. Then in 8th grade, I moved away from my family. I found my father and stepmom, who are Christians, and I was told to forgive. I thought I had forgiven, but now I'm an adult, and I find I don't forgive. I'm angry.
And what's the person's name?
That person's name is Shannon.
Shannon, I am so happy that you as an adult are having the awareness and the courage to admit, I don't fucking forgive that shit. Fuck no. I love that so much. I want to give you a big hug and a big kiss on the cheek right now. I love that you are discovering that about yourself. Now, did everybody hear what Shannon said? Shannon fundamentally said that as a kid, I was molested. Do I have that accurate, Rob? Shannon was molested as a kid, and she was pushed at a young age to say, you got to forgive. And then at age 8, I believe it was, she went and lived with her father and stepmother, who were Christian, and they said, no, you need to forgive even more, probably because Jesus says so. And then so she did. She thought she had forgiven already, and now she's forgiving even more. But now she's an adult and realizing, fuck that shit. I don't have to forgive, and I don't forgive, and I don't want to forgive. Do I have it, Rob?
And she's angry.
And she's angry, yeah. Yeah, angry for many reasons. The obvious answer is I'm angry because I was molested. I'm angry at the person who molested me. That's the easy answer, but the real answer is this. I think, or the next question, not the real, I don't mean that. Just the next question is this: who commits the greater crime? The person who's does the molesting, or those engaged in the cover-up, or those telling you your feelings don't matter, those telling a child that they have to forgive a child molester. Let's take a vote. Forgiveness. Let's address that first. Forgiveness, and this is so funny, it's coming up. I literally just did a video on this morning. I swear to God, I did 3 videos, and one of them is on exactly this. How forgiveness is one of the most maligned, misunderstood aspects, and I believe most inaccurately taught of all aspects of Christianity, of mental health, of soul work. When I was writing my book, Badass Wisdom, I literally have a day in here where I talk about forgiveness. And I could look in the index and tell you right now what that day is, but I'm not going to, because whatever, doesn't matter. The point is this, I talk about on that day, it's just a one-day meditation. I say, I was looking for a quote on forgiveness that talked about the complexity of forgiveness and how forgiveness is not always good. And I talk about on that day in Badass Wisdom, I talk about how I literally could not find one single quote. In fact, every quote I ran into, from Gandhi to Mother Teresa to fucking Mr. Rogers, said, no, it's good, Sven, you're an idiot. I mean, I'm trying to go against Mr. Rogers, for fuck's sake, Gandhi, for fuck's sake, right? And they're all saying, no, forgiveness is good, forgiveness is good. And I'm not saying forgiveness is bad. What I'm saying is pushing for forgiveness too soon is the giant mistake. Pushing someone else to forgive is a crime. It's a fucking crime. As we are seeing here it's Shannon, right, Rob? As we are seeing with Shannon, you were pushed to do something that utterly invalidated your feelings. It utterly invalidated the experience that was done to you. The level of rage I feel towards the adults that pushed you to forgive, you would hear me blow up like I've blown up on other episodes. And Rob is always like turning down the microphone a bit when I'm blowing up. I am blowing up right now. I'm so angry at the people that told you that a child should forgive a child molester, and that it was done in the latter case with your father and his wife, that it was done in the name of religion. That, folks, is why religion gets a bad rap. That, folks, is why people look at Christianity and it's like, are you fucking kidding me? You are telling a child they have to forgive a molester, and you're doing it in the name of God? Really? Get the fuck out of my church. If I'm the pastor, get the fuck out of my church. You know, and so anyway, to your personal point, you're angry, yeah. And what you need to do, Shannon, in all honesty, is you need to drill down. You need to drill down, and you need to sit in that anger, and you need to journal your fucking ass off. This is the one subject, your anger and your hurt and your sense of feeling betrayed, is what you need to be talking about with your therapist. You need to be writing letters to those parents who did not protect you. And I don't mean protect you from the child molester. Maybe they couldn't. Maybe it happened at school. Maybe it happened in some place where they couldn't. I'm talking about protecting. And parents, you need to understand this, that your job of protecting and serving your children isn't just protecting their physical body, isn't just protecting their bed from the rain coming down at night, protecting it with a roof. It's not just protecting them with warm clothes. It's not just protecting their health by making sure, they have that rash looked at, or protecting their health by making sure they're eating healthy. You have a responsibility to protect the emotional health of your child. Let me share something with you. Do you have any idea how many clients I've had over the years who were abused, or who were, who had the roof over their head, but there was emotional abuse, or there was physical abuse and emotional abuse? And I ask the highly impertinent question, and I do it respectfully. And I'll tell a client, you don't have to answer this. I won't be offended. You can tell me to go fuck myself. The question comes from an honest place with no disrespect intended. And they'll say, no, go ahead and ask your question, Sven. I say, okay. And again, you don't have to answer. And I'll ask this question: what was worse for you, the physical abuse or the emotional / verbal abuse? Which was worse? To the best of my recollection, I've only in the rarest of cases where there was damage done to, long-term damage done to particularly sexual organs, almost literally every single person has said, Sven, the emotional abuse is worse. And I say, why is that? Help me understand. As someone who is not physically abused or emotionally abused, help me understand. And they'll say, the answer I hear most frequently is, the physical scars heal. The emotional scars don't. So when I say, parents, you have an obligation to protect your child's emotional life, their soul life. Take it from people who have been victims of abuse. Now, I'm not saying all of them. I'm just saying the ones that I've worked with, most of them have said the emotional damage is worse when you are raising your child. If you are not ready to be emotionally present and protective of your child's feelings and nurturing their feelings, if you're not ready to do that, just wait. Wait to have your child. You can have it later, okay? Heal your own stuff, because it's your own pains that are going to cause you to not be able to be present and protective of your child's feelings. So, to sort of finish up there, Shannon, you need to protect that child that was you. You need to fundamentally go back and reparent that child, and you need to hold that little girl at the age when she was molested. You need to hold her, and you need to push her hair back over her ears, and you need to hold her and give her so many kisses and say, I got you, sweetheart. It's okay. Let it out. Let it out. I'm here. You're safe now. And she's going to start to sob. She's going to start to grieve, and she's going to start to heave all of her pain. And she's going to start to heave with all of her confusion. She's going to start to heave with all of her fear and all of her own feeling bad and guilty and like she's a bad girl. And she's going to start to heave all of that out of her. The obligation, Shannon, that you have is that 4-year-old self, that 6-year-old self, but that 8-year-old self. And then that 12, 14, 16, 22, every age self since then that thought that you were bad and that maybe felt dirty and felt confused and couldn't trust. You have an obligation to go back and hug and kiss every single one of those and tell them, I got you. I'm strong enough now. I got you. Nobody's going to hurt you. And you have to do them the gift of letting out all of their feelings. You have to protect them finally, giving them the emotional protection, the emotional voice that they didn't have the strength to protect, to do, of course, and no one gave them that room. You need to give them that. And you need to tell them you don't have to forgive a doggone thing. I'll make the forgiveness decision later, little 12-year-old self. I'll make the forgiveness decision later, and you don't even have to worry about that. All you got to do is know that I got you, and it's going to be okay. That's what you need to do to heal that pain inside and the rage that is coming out of it. And you especially, and this is one last piece here on this, Shannon, you need to go into one thing in particular, and you need to be journaling about hate. I have found one of the most cathartic things in my work with clients is when there has been significant pain, you have to have the courage to admit the hatred that you have. Hatred is not the absence of love. You can still love your parents if that's what you feel. But if you're going to give them love, you have to have the courage to also give the hate. And then it doesn't mean you ever have to confront the person in real life if you don't want to, but admit the hatred that you feel. Because I'll be very honest with you, anybody that teaches a child they have to forgive a child molester, I hate them. I'm going to be straight up honest with you. And you have to give yourself permission to allow that out. Otherwise, you are bottling up the anger and the rage and the hatred. You can let it out. You never have to confront the real life, living, breathing parent. If you want to, you can, but you don't have to. In order to heal, you have to allow whatever your feelings, because feelings, what do? They come, they stay, and they go. They only stay a long time. You only remain a hater if you don't let the hate out. But as long as you allow it out and facilitate that out by journaling it out and talking out with your therapist, you're getting the hate out of you. That's where the real relief comes. Was there a follow-up on that, Rob?
Actually, there is another comment while you were speaking, and well said, by the way, my friend. This person must have had quite a reaction when you were speaking, because the question that came in while you were answering that question was, my mother was abusive. She has no recollection, no apology, just denial. I want to forgive her. But I think if she just said, I'm sorry, I could move forward.
Right. And so that says the fact that you can't move forward says you're wanting the sorry, that you believe your ability to move forward is tied up in your mother's actions or inactions. And what I'm telling you is you can heal without ever getting that from your parent, because otherwise what you're doing is you are giving your mother control over your life, control over your happiness or misery. Rob, did you want to say something?
Shannon said just now, thank you for your advice. Spot on.
You're welcome. And this is this second point, though, about wanting that admission from the parent. You're wanting to forgive, no doubt, because you're wanting to restore the breach in the relationship. And very often, if we're wanting to restore a relationship, or if we're still wanting something from a parent, like an acknowledgement or attention or affection or approval or acceptance, that's what you're really wanting, to restore the relationship so that I can finally get those needs met that I didn't get met before. But in order for you to restore that relationship, you need your parent to acknowledge it, and your mother doesn't want to acknowledge it. Do you want to know why she doesn't want to acknowledge it? Because she looks like a little fucking horrible parent if she does. And that is too much, especially if your identity is wrapped up in I'm a good parent. The notion of admitting that you fucked up is too much. This is why when I post so many posts like the one I did 2 days ago, and it's up on all my platforms, Badass Counseling on TikTok, Facebook, etc. I'm in a white shirt with orange sleeves. And I just call out the parents. It falls on you. And I get so much resistance when I talk about this, because so many parents say, oh, kids need to be responsible. Quit blaming their parents. And I say, well, parents need to be responsible and quit blaming their kids. But so many parents don't want to admit culpability, especially if there's been molestation or abuse. Why? Because it means admitting I'm not, or I wasn't a great parent. It means putting their tail between their legs and expressing contrition. It means owning things that are painful to own. And so they would rather you feel bad. They would rather you be responsible. They would rather you carry the burden. That's not good parenting. There is no rubric of parenting of good parenting under which this fits. That's not good parenting, to allow the child to eat the shit for the damage I have caused. That is not good parenting. All right. Much more to come right after this short break.
So I was telling a buddy of mine how he seems happier. He told me about the book that changed his life. So I bit. I went to the Badass Counseling website and downloaded There's a Hole in My Love Cup audiobook. I started listening to it on my commute home from work, and holy cow, it was a Louisville slugger to the face. I literally sat in my car in the driveway night after night, listening through to the end of a chapter or doing the journaling exercises. My wife started to see changes. I started to change a lot. My default response stopped always being anger. Now I manage a team of salespeople, and I changed as a leader. I was listening more, not always just reacting. When their numbers started going up seemingly out of nowhere, I knew what the reason was. There's a Hole in My Love Cup is now required listening for any person on my sales team or working for me, and I gladly buy it for them. You gotta listen to this book.
This show provides soul counseling intended to entertain and inform, and is not medical advice. Now, back to the badass.
Hi, guys. We are back. A couple of quick questions here. I got a whole bunch shown up on my radar here. Do you believe in soulmates, or is it communication and respect, etc.? First of all, Hawkeye Girl, I shall assume you are from Iowa. Good to have the Iowans in the house. All right. Do I believe in soulmates? I do. But my definition is different from a lot of people. Soulmate became a very popular term with the book by Thomas More back in the 90s. International bestseller. He was a monk and psychologist, and not the Thomas More, writer from 200 years ago, but different one. Anyway, and I believed in soulmates, and then I was in my second marriage, or just coming out of my second marriage, and I made a shift in my definition of soulmates. I believe in soulmates insofar as someone that is this very important person at your period of life, and you're just meant to be together. But I changed my definition, but I added a time clause. And see, so many people think that soulmates means forever. This is the one person I'm going to be with or supposed to be with forever. And that's what I used to believe. And I changed it. I took out that time clause of forever, and I put in the time clause of now. See, what I came to realize was during my mid to late teens to about my mid to late 20s, my brother David was my soulmate. Simultaneously, my first wife, during our years together, during those early 20s, she was my soulmate. I had two soulmates. It was absolutely true by my own understanding and belief in just that absolute soul connection, very powerful level. My second wife was my soulmate for a shorter period of time in my 30s. My present girlfriend is my soulmate. And we've been together 10 plus years. So I believe in soulmates? Yes. But the truth is, I also believe in communication, respect, and all those other things too. But yeah, that's that. Next question, and it's piggybacking on where I was just talking about the notion of the mom and identity and admitting fault and so forth. Please tell us more about it becoming part of your identity. You have to understand anything that you invest your time, energy, money, anything into, you value more. Okay? I do not invest my time and energy into volunteering at an animal shelter. Is it because I don't love animals? No, I have 3 dogs, right? And I love, making gardens, and we have hummingbirds and butterflies, and my girlfriend loves bees and so forth. So no, I like animals, but I just don't invest my time at an animal shelter. I also don't invest my time in volunteering in local politics. Not because I have anything against it. I just don't. I invest my time in doing volunteer work on, helping people, creating videos and so on and so forth. I also do quite a bit of work with homeless. I work with some runaway teens and so forth. And what I invest my energy into is a reflection of what's important to me. Therefore, what I'm investing myself into is part of my identity. So imagine having a child and you're wiping that child's butt, and you're changing their diaper, and you're feeding them, and you're telling them go to your room when they hit their little sister, and all these things. And you invest time and energy, driving them to ballet, and making them their favorite, casserole or hot dish or lasagna, and you leave this child doesn't like pork, so you end up using beef instead, and all these different things. And the more time, energy, life you invest into a child, the more that child becomes part of your identity. But not only the child becomes part of your identity, the notion that I'm a good parent becomes part of your identity, because look at all I'm doing. So then you come along later in life, as the people we were talking with earlier said, they were molested as children. And the parent doesn't want to admit it. But it doesn't even require something of that magnitude. We're seeing so many young people nowadays, and although this is not a new phenomenon, we're seeing it because this was happening back in the 80s, folks. This whole thing of kids confronting parents. This is not a new phenomenon, all right? Everybody's just saying it's so big now. Bullshit. It was happening then. All right, but the point is this. A lot of parents don't want to admit their fault. Why? Because their identity is, I'm good, you're bad. You're the problem, I'm not the problem. Their identity, because they've invested so much into the child, they have to believe I am good, because it would destroy them. Maybe 85% or 80% or 65% of their identity is that I am a mom or I'm a good dad. So you come along saying shit like, no, yes, you were in some ways, but you fucked up in X, Y, and Z way. They can't bring themselves, because it's a personal affront. It seems to knock away at the very foundation of who they believe themselves to be. So this isn't just you pointing out their parenting to them. It's a massive personal affront. And unfortunately, many parents will protect themselves at the expense of the children. And you've heard me tell the story before, and I'll tell it very briefly here, and that is in our 20s. My parents came to each of us kids and said, if you have beef with us, if we let you down, if we screwed up, please tell us. Please get it off your chest. I can remember taking a walk with my father more than once, talking with my mother in the kitchen more than once, and discussing different issues. And I know some of my siblings did as well. Well, then again, in her 80s, my mom came to each of us kids, did the exact same thing. And then again, in her final year of life, in her 93rd year, she reached out to each of her children and said, if there is anything, and to use the language that I use, that Sven used, if you have any rocks in that burlap sack on your back that I put there, pains I caused, ways I let you down, disappointed you, undermined you, hurt you, please give me those rocks back so that you don't have them when I'm gone. Their whole life, my parents put in effort to making sure they weren't contributing to or they weren't allowing any rocks from pain they had caused us to exist in those burlap sacks on our back, so to speak. Even in her 93rd year of life, that's good parenting. Good parenting doesn't stop at 18. It comes later when they have the courage to come to you and say, hey, you disappointed me, or I need you to acknowledge this thing that you did. It really hurt, or it really let me down. Or I need, and it's not going to be, it's not the money shit or the whatever. It might be that occasionally, but no, it's this emotional stuff that's so important. I have clients in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and even 80s who are still dealing with emotional problems from their own childhood. It's not even about blaming parents, about finding the origins of what's going on inside of myself. And they realize even in their 60s or 70s, they're still wanting something from that dead parent. Because so many people feel like they can't be happy, they can't move on with their life, they can't feel fulfilled unless they get that thing from the parent who made them feel unfulfilled, unhappy, or self-loathing in the first place. But it's like you're in a prison cell and you believe that your parent is the only one that has a key to the prison cell, when in fact the key to your cell is in your own pocket. And as long as somebody has something that you want, they have the power to make you miserable. So as long as you believe that the parent has the key, because they're the one that caused the pain, they're the one that you've always contorted your whole life to get the approval of or get the acknowledgement of what they did wrong. As long as you believe they have the key, you won't ever be able to heal. But the key is in your own pocket insofar as you can go back and heal the original bullshit messages you were taught about yourself and heal those pains without anything from the parent, even though you may still want it. And at some point, unfortunately in life, we have to recognize I'm never going to get it from the parent. Then you have to do the work of healing yourself. And it's a sad day, but it's a liberating day, because finally I don't have to spend my life trying to contort to try to win that approval or acceptance or attention. But someone just makes the comment, Sven, when I journal, it wears me out all day. I can't do anything else. And I get people saying this all the time. I don't want to journal. I don't want to go to therapy because it brings up all this stuff and then I feel crappy and so on and so forth, or it wears me down. You have to understand that if you've got feelings that you've been packing down and that's what you're bringing up in counseling, or that's what you're bringing up in writing letters that you don't send, or in your journaling, or in some of the other tools that I teach, that you're getting that out of that vault that it's been locked down in for so long, you're finally getting it out. And so when it comes out, you're feeling it on the way out. And the relief comes after you push it out of you. So if it's still feeling heavy, that means it's still in you. That means you still need to do work to flush it out of you, which is what writing is for, which is what journaling is for, which is what talking it out with your therapist or with your best friend is for. And this is what I created these tools for. And so many people say, well, I don't want to go to therapy because I feel that heaviness. That's because the therapy you're in or the journaling work you're doing isn't getting it out of you. And again, this is what the books are for. Badass Wisdom and There's a Hole in My Love Cup. It's to get all of those feelings out of you, because what comes when you get it out of you is the exact opposite feeling of burdened. It brings relief. Now, there's the other thing of when clients go through sessions with me, I always start, with a 6-hour session is the opening session. Follow-up sessions are 2 to 4 hours. And a lot of times, even if we get that sense of relief at the end, there's a sense of exhaustion because they've done some heavy fucking lifting. We've gone deep into that cave inside of them and we've slayed some fucking dragons. They've slayed them. I've just been there holding their hand and asking the right questions. So yeah, it's going to be exhausting, but the relief that comes with it is the reason you're doing that. And if you're not getting that sense of relief, that means something is missing from your counseling or you're not using the right tools. And again, I would strongly recommend my book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup. All right. Next question. How do you get over betrayal? It was great for 7 years. Then he left for another girl because I'm chronically ill. No, he didn't leave for another girl because you're chronically ill. I got bad news for you. I got good news for you, actually. He didn't leave you for another girl because you're chronically ill. He left you for another girl. Betrayal, I'm going to assume because you used the word betrayal that it was a cheat. So he went to the other girl while you were in the relationship, right? You don't say that he ended the relationship and then he went to the other girl by saying that. And so he didn't leave you for another girl. He left because he was too much of a coward to end the relationship first. It's not your fault that he cheated on you. Now, if he ended the relationship, okay, I can understand how you're hurting and if he played by the rules by ending the relationship first, okay? But if he did it while in the context of the relationship, you accepting blame for him cheating on you is not okay, all right? That's him being a coward and not dealing with it appropriately. But you're asking, how do you get over the betrayal? You get over betrayal by the same way you get over any feelings, love, hatred, anger, sadness, by sitting in it. The great poet Rumi, the Sufi poet Rumi said that the cure for the pain is in the pain. It's sitting in the pain and using mechanisms for flushing that pain out. All right? And that's why I'm always about journaling, writing letters you don't send, and a couple other techniques that I teach in my book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup. But you have to be actively engaged in flushing it out, not just sitting in it, not just crying a lot, or not just being angry, or not just letting it perseverate in your head. You have to be taking it out of your head. You have to be codifying it, putting into words. All right? And thereby, what does it do? It loses its power. The more you put it into words, the more it loses its power over you. But betrayal is just like any other feeling. You got to be doing the work of getting it out. All right, next question. This is a great question. I love this question. How do you feel happy and appreciated by yourself without anyone? Boy, that's a great question. And that's one that afflicts a lot of people, men and women. And very often then someone who doesn't know how to, and it's okay that you don't. A lot of us aren't taught that or when we're growing up, right? But basically what happens in childhood is either that child is getting their love cup filled with love by the parents, primarily by the parents, particularly up until roughly puberty. Then we start reaching out to peers to become sources of that love, confirmation of our worth from something outside of the family unit, all right? And a child with healthy peer relationships, building on healthy family relationships, their love cup is filling with love. And so this person is much more adept than at being alone or being in relationships and feeling loved and therefore not tolerating poor treatment. And they know how to set boundaries and so on and so forth. But what Magic Man is saying, but how do I, feel happy and appreciated by myself without someone? Now, very often, this may not be your case, Magic Man, but I bet on it. And very often someone who can't be alone has less love in the love cup, but worse, has crud that's been put into their love cup. Pain, hardship, diminishment of your character, bullshit beliefs you've been taught about yourself. So all that stuff is in there. So when we're alone, it's not being alone. For most people, it's not the idea of being alone. I mean, you're alone when you drive to work. You're alone when you're getting on the plane at the airport and going on a business trip. It's not about being alone per se. It's when you don't have someone saying, I love you. That's what we're really talking about. And why? What happens then when you don't have someone basically pouring love into your love cup? What happens? Well, what happens is all of those original voices, all the crud that got stuffed into your love cup, telling you you're not good enough, you're always late, you're lazy, you're stupid, you're a loser, you're, we had a client earlier tonight, you're a slut, whatever it is. Those messages you were taught about yourself, you're not good enough, you're unlovable, you're unwantable, all those messages come rising up from deep down inside you where they've always rested. And they come rising up and they start churning in your head. Oh, I'm no good. See, I'm no good. That person who loved me, they left. They don't love me anymore, right? And that's why we hold on to people. Because the love, even if it was just a little teaspoonful of love that they poured into our love cup, it felt so good. Oh my God, I'll do anything. I'll give you anything. I'll let you abuse me. I'll do anything. Just don't leave me. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. Because that love felt so good. Right? We let them walk all over us and all sorts of shit. But when they do leave, it's like, see, I'm no good. See, I'm a loser. I can't even keep a girlfriend. Or see, I'm unlovable. Just like I was always told, those voices come rising up inside. That's what we're afraid of when we're afraid of being alone. It's what goes on in here. And so you ask the question, how do you feel happy and appreciated by yourself without anyone? The way you feel happy and appreciated in any situation, but especially in being alone without someone to confirm your worth, without someone pouring love into your love cup, is you have to go inside and get out all the message undermining your happiness and undermining your own appreciation of self. See, if those messages weren't in there, you would naturally, a child's natural state, a human's natural state is love. Love of self, I'm good. Life is good. So if you're not experiencing that, it's because you have messages in there saying precisely the opposite. And those messages have been in there a very long time. And this is why this work of healing self, of healing that inner child, of going in and rooting out, pulling out all of those BS core beliefs that you were taught about yourself is so important. Like I talk about in my book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup. When you were a child, your soul is wet cement. Your soul is wet cement. All right? And whatever messages get pressed into that wet cement, they harden. They harden. They calcify. And those messages become the virus infecting the operating system of the rest of your life. And so what happens then, whether it's when you're 20, 40, 60, or 80, at some point, the pain of living this belief system that isn't yours, it takes over you so much that you finally begin to do the work of jackhammering that cement. And what you discover underneath it is this beautiful bedrock that doesn't need any fucking cement. It's this beautiful bedrock of your original self. The follow-up was, is it bad to be alone? No, it's not bad to be alone. It's not bad to be alone at all. In fact, it's an extremely powerful thing if you can be alone, and taking time to be alone in between relationships is necessary, because otherwise what? You'll jump into your next relationship still afraid of being alone, which means you'll just carry the exact same problem in. You'll tolerate all sorts of shit. This is why therapists generally will tell someone, take time to be alone. Take time. Why? So that you can go down to the bedrock of who you really are, jackhammer out all those messages. But that means having the courage to go in and face the real shit of where this stuff came from and who implanted those messages. And that's ugly, scary, nasty ass stuff. You got to slay some motherfucking dragons. And again, that's what I wrote the book for. There's a Hole in My Love Cup and also Badass Wisdom. Both are available at badasscounseling.com.
Or as Woody Allen said, masturbation is sex with the person I love most.
What the hell? Great line. How did that fit in there, Rob?
Why, it's good to be alone.
Ah, I see. I'm all for it. All righty. And getting a lot of affirmation on that over here on Facebook. Bonnie, Julie, Michelle is laughing at your joke. Michelle, don't laugh at his jokes. You're just encouraging him.
Not my joke, just repeating.
Yeah, okay.
That's how I get off the hook.
Woody Allen said, I didn't say it. Hey, I'm just repeating what he said.
Back when he was respectable, he said that.
Uh-huh. That's true. True. Oh, God. Great question. Sammy, you're giving me softballs right over the plate. Sammy says, how important is it to apologize to your child and admit our mistakes as parents? There are a few things in your life that you will ever do that will be more important. Investing in your child's education, whether that education is plumbing school or college or, whatever it is, getting them to public school every day on time. Few things you'll invest in better than educating your child. There are a few things more important, but this is even more important or just as important. It's what Sammy's saying. How important is it to apologize to your child and admit our mistakes as parents? Few things more important than that. Why? You're modeling humility. You're modeling contrition. You're modeling walking through life aware of the footprint I am leaving. You, as the adult who has all the power, you have all the power. For those first 20 years, the kids, they're teenagers and they're all sassy and all this shit, but the parent still has all the fucking power. Plus, all those messages that you wrote into the bedrock of their soul and that fucking cement, that's what's driving your kid at 15 and probably still at 30 and 45, which is why my clients are usually 30, 40s, 50s, 60s, right? How important is it to apologize? Apologize to your kids. Why? Because at the very least, it's a mark of great parenting. It's a mark of someone saying, I'm not always right. It's a mark of someone who cares about protecting the emotional life, the soul of your child. that even if I'm the one making the mistake, I have the humility, I have the decency to go back and to apologize. Would you apologize? Let me ask you guys this question. If you have a friend or you have a coworker who's a good person, respectable, decent person, or maybe even a coworker who can be a shit now and then, if you hurt somebody, would you go and apologize? Well, hopefully your answer is yes. Hopefully your answer is yes. Well, shoot, if you do it to a child, shouldn't the imperative to apologize be double, be triple? You know, one of my all-time favorite line in all of movies, my all-time single favorite line goes to exactly this point. You know which one I'm going to say, Rob?
I don't.
It's from Fletch. And Fletch, it's actually from the sequel, Fletch Lives. And he says, it takes a big man to admit he's wrong. I am not a big man. I love that line so much. But it's a testament to how difficult it is to apologize. I mean, how many people, what percentage of the people that you know, ask this question yourself, what percentage of the people you know in your life apologize? Think about that. It's an honorable and rare commodity, isn't it? And it's someone who is so good, decent, but also strong enough to admit when they're wrong. Now, hopefully it's not just they apologize and don't change their actions. So that's the other piece that goes with it. But so many people don't have the courage to apologize. So to model that for your child, to model it and to hold them to that expectation, can you please apologize? Or, sweetheart, you need to apologize to your little sister. You know, you hurt her feelings. Or, sister, you need to apologize to your brother. That was, you know, and modeling it in my own behavior though as well, not just talking down to the parent, to the children. I just think that is profoundly important, to be the bigger person, to apologize first, to model it for your own children. All right, one more or two questions.
You know, Sven, you tell people you don't need your parent to apologize to you to heal, but if they were to apologize on their own volition, how much easier is that?
Well, and even if it's not on their own volition, but yes, on their own volition, how much healing happens. Why? Because you're taking that rock out of the burlap sack of your 38-year-old daughter's bag on her back. The amount of relief and joy you bring. And guess what? Your child will, in more often than not, especially as they get into their 30s and 40s, they will want to repair that relationship with you if you have the courage to own your shit. But don't be surprised if you don't own your shit and they don't want a relationship with you, because what you're fundamentally doing is you're denying their reality. You are protecting your own identity at the expense of their pain. That's not parenting. That's just dog shit. All right. Jake asks, which book should I read first? I strongly recommend that you read There's a Hole in My Love Cup first. That's the healing book. And Badass Wisdom is the daily meditational book that comes after. Or, I mean, you can get them both. Some people do them both at the same time, but I recommend, as far as the deep healing work, to go with There's a Hole in My Love Cup. All right. I am now taking the last question of the day. Mom is upset I set boundaries in my pregnancy. Oh, man. Any women laughing right about now or saying, oh, here we go. This is my story. You don't even know. Nikki Thicky, you don't even know how many times I've heard this story. Okay, here we go. Mom is upset I set boundaries in my pregnancy and is telling me I hate her. When is it okay to cut ties? Oh, I don't know, during the pregnancy or about at age, 6 when she started doing all this crap. Think about what just happened here, folks. Nikki Thicky is saying, Mom is upset I set boundaries in my pregnancy. So you're pregnant. You are carrying another life. You are trying to deal with all the hormones raging. You are dealing with trying to get sleep. Probably you're at work. You got a child inside of you growing. And your mom's being a pissy little fuck and saying, you can't set boundaries with me. I'm your mother. That's my It's like, are you fucking serious? Are you so selfish that your daughter doesn't get to you don't want your daughter to have boundaries even when she's pregnant? Well, she should with everyone else, but not with me. Or maybe she just said, no, she shouldn't have. Oh my God. The height, it's the very zenith of selfishness when your adult daughter has a baby growing inside of it. Oh my God. Okay, but let's keep going here. Mom's upset that I set boundaries in my pregnancy and is telling me I hate her. So your mom is taking this, what should be a manageable thing of you setting boundaries, and she's going 0 to 100 miles in 100 miles an hour in 3 seconds, saying, "Oh, you hate me, you hate me." In other words, if I don't get my way, then it must mean you hate me. Have you ever had a conversation with someone? Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a lover, maybe it's a parent, child, spouse, whatever. And you're calling them out on this one thing. And they'll go on this one thing, like, you're not listening to me in this conversation. And they'll go instantly to, "Oh, I'm just a bad, spouse. Oh, I'm just a bad husband. Oh, okay." In other words, they'll blow it up so big that what's your response? No, you're not a bad husband. No, you're not a bad mom. I'm just saying on this one thing. Well, in other words, they're making it about their feelings and they're inflating it really big so that you'll do what? So that you'll withdraw your position or so that you'll begin comforting them. That's what's happening here. Mom is saying that because you put a boundary, you hate me. It means you don't love me. No, Mom, I love you is going to be your natural response very often, right? So in other words, she wants you to come kowtowing to her. So she's making something bigger than it is. She's expanding not only her feelings, she's expanding her argument so that she'll get you to kowtow to her, to minimize your own argument or make it go away. And also she's equating boundaries with hate so that you won't have any boundaries, so that you'll feel bad for hating her, and then you'll eliminate any boundaries that exist today. Therefore, your mother is acting like an absolute fucking child, but worse, she's manipulating the fuck out of you, right? And so you then state, when is it okay to cut ties? The mere fact that you are even asking that question says you obviously want to cut ties and you have every intention of cutting ties, because you're not asking, is it okay? You're asking, when is it okay? And the when of cutting ties with anyone is when it feels right to you. When you realize that it's been going on for a while and it's not going to change. Or when you realize, I just don't want to be treated this way. You have every right to cut ties. Furthermore, consider this, Nikki Thicky. No, Nikki Thicky. Yeah, that's right. Consider this, Nikki Thicky, that as long as you are keeping your mother in your life, and there's anybody who is acting the way your mother is acting is expecting you to be emotionally responsible for her. It's obviously not going the other direction. She's obviously not the one pouring love in your love cup. She expects you to pour love into her love cup, which means you are engaged in a relationship with an emotional child when you have an actual child in your life who needs your full emotional attention, and probably perhaps a spouse as well. You've got a family unit you're trying to build, and now you've got this person in here coming and saying, no, you exist to pour love into my love cup. In other words, she's asking you to take love out of your family unit, whether it's you and your child, or you, your child and a spouse, or however many there are in your family unit. Take love out of that setting and give it to her. So by her acting like a child, by her guilting you, saying you hate her and all these things, she is in fact undermining the emotional health of your family. Are you okay with that? Therefore, if your job is to protect the emotional health of your family and the emotional health of your spouse and your own emotional health, then when you are giving to someone who is not giving back, in other words, where it's a net loss, you are undermining your family, you are undermining your own personal health and growth, and you are fundamentally undermining the emotional health of a child. But furthermore, you will then perpetuate it into your relationship with a child. Why? Because you couldn't cut it off with your own parent. So in all likelihood, you're coming into your own parenting with a deficit because your love is going out towards mom. So you're coming into parenting with a deficit. And those are the parents that start using the child to get their own needs for affection, attention, approval met. You will start using your child if you do not engage in prioritizing the child now. We good?
That's great. Most pregnant women want more stress. And, I don't remember a chapter in the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting, that says your mother's going to be a dick. That's not one of those chapters.
No, but that's a brilliant book. And there's so many other great parenting books. And I'm sure there are ones out there that say your mother or your father is going to be a dick, or your spouse is going to be a dick. There are plenty of dicks in the world. But there are plenty of wonderful people in this world. And I think we need to, for all the problems and stuff that we talk about on the show, it's important to also recognize that there are so many just really fine people out there striving to do better. And if you listen to this show, you're probably one of those people. You wouldn't want to listen to this shit if you were like, no, fuck that, I don't have any problems. So to all of you badasses that are doing the work to heal, that are doing the work to improve yourself and be better for those you love, but to be better for yourself, I really applaud you. And you know the books. There's A Hole in My Love Cup and Badass Wisdom, and they're available on the website. But I just really want to underscore the fact that there are so many good people in this world. There really are, and it gets easy to get caught up in our problems and saying, "Hey, all the world sucks" and all this thing. But there are times when we just need to take a moment and be grateful for those friends that we have that support us, or that sibling or that family member who, even though there are family problems, yet there is that one uncle that always comes through for you, or auntie. And that those are the real bright spots, and they give us hope of what we can be in the world for other people, especially young people, those who are hurting or in need, to be a source of light and love in the world. Rob, any final thoughts today?
Amen, brother. Good show.
Great show. Thank you guys for all the great questions. And so on behalf of my team, KC over in the booth has given a double thumbs up and waving to all of you. And Rob the Rocket right next to me. I am Sven Erlandson, the host of the Badass Counseling Show. No matter where you are tuning in from the UK down to Australia, South Africa to Canada, and all parts in the US, have a kick-ass day.
The Badass Counseling Show is strictly copyrighted. No copies may be made without the express written consent of the Badass Counseling Show, LLC. The Badass Counseling Show is produced by Karen Camparelli and Robert H. Friedman. Executive producer Sven Erlandson. Original music by two-time Emmy Award-winning composer Trevor Morris. Have a kick-ass day.